Okay, so first of all, to my dismay, I'm going to be away for a period. Next Sunday, I'm going to be on my way to Europe. My Einikel, Yisroel Ari, is getting married right after Shavuos, and my son is making a trip to Kivrei Avos and Kivrei Tzadikim. So I'm going to be just one day to visit the kever of Rav Mordechai Bennett and the Chassam Sofer. I'm an Einikel of Rav Mordechai Bennett, so Sunday I'm going to be on my way to Europe. A Sunday later, I'm going to be probably arriving in Los Angeles. So for the coming 3 Sundays, I think I'm going to miss you. And we'll have many more opportunities. So we are today in the midst of Seviras U'Omer. And Seviras U'Omer originally were days of festival, of joy. The Ramban writes, the days between Pesach and Atzeres are similar to the days between Sukkot and Atzeres. Yom Shmini Atzeres Tiyeh Lechem, Chol HaMoed, days of joy. But these days of joy were tragically transformed to days of mourning with the tragedy of Talmidei Rebbe Akiva. 24,000 great Talmidei Chachamim perished. And this week's Parsha, Parshas Kedoshim, is the Mitzvah of V'yohavto l'reacho Kamocha. So this is our topic today. We won't get very far, but we will try to define the Agudah, the essence of V'yohavto l'reacho Kamocha. Number one commentator and Torah is Targum Onkelos. Rashi quotes Onkelos all the time. And the translation of Onkelos is the most simple one, a literal translation.
Pesach, put up the Marmakoimus, please. Pesach, put up the Marmakoimus.
It is the most literal translation. Userachmei lechavrech kavosech. Yonason, Targum Yonason, is different. Uterachmei lechavrech, demanda antsani lach lo tavid lei. What you wouldn't like other people to do to you, don't do to others. So before we go into an in-depth analysis of the interpretation of V'yohavto l'reacho kamocha, the first question is it about love? Is it about your feelings, attitudes, emotions, like the nature of ahava? Love is an emotion. Or is it not only about the way you feel, but also the way you act, react, interact? So we have a few Gemaras. Source number one. This Gemara is in the beginning of Perek Beis the Kedushin. The Mishnah says, "Ish mekadesh boy v'dishluchai." Person become mekadesh an issue. He doesn't need to do it personally. He could send an agent. However, Chazal say, you are not allowed to engage a woman, to be mekadesh a woman, unless you see her. But I did a lot of research. I did due diligence. I heard such amazing things about her. She's the greatest personality. It is exactly, I tick all the boxes. She's exactly what I've been looking for. But you didn't see her. And if her looks won't appeal to you, Chazal aren't afraid you're going to divorce her. You're not going to run away. But you might not love her enough, and you're going to be over and V'yohavto l'reacho kamocha. So the Gemara clearly doesn't say, we're afraid you're going to hurt her. You're afraid you won't act nicely to her. Shema yira b'dov v'geno v'tizgan alav v'rachmana omer V'yohavto l'reacho kamocha. So it's definitely about the way you feel about people. Chazal want you to love your wife, and Chazal want you to love every other Jew. But it is not only about attitudes and feelings. It is primarily about your actions, about your deeds. Source number 2, which many times in Shmusin I cynically say, and I say this with a degree of cynicism. Source number 2, and if we turn a page, it's also source number 8. Let's scroll down for a moment to source number 8, and then we'll come back to the top of our sheet. So this is a Gemara in Sanhedrin and in other sources in Shas. Bror lo misa yafa. Tosfos explains the concept of bror lo misa yafa. Mishum de la reach uksiv lo sheich mechayim chayechu kodmin. So anyway, one of the interpretations, we go back to the beginning of our sheet, back to page number 1. So one of the interpretations we find in Chazal, v'yahavtu l'reachu kamocha, is in the context of Daled Mises Beis Din, Bror lo misa yafa. Even when you have this tragic mitzvah that we need to perform, which is capital punishment, even when you have a mitzvah to kill a person, to take his life, kill him gently, kill him softly. Don't cause excessive pain and shame. And many times I said cynically, some people think that is the only interpretation of Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha. Kill him, but kill him gently. So we need to teach people Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha applies during a person's lifetime as well. And Bror lo misa yafa is not the only pshat in Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha. You might be surprised. In Shas, most of the times Chazal quote the pasuk Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha, it is in the context of Bror lo misa yafa. But that is just a queer statistic. Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha also means Bror lo misa yafa, but primarily this mitzvah applies to the living and not only to the dead. So how do we define V'yahavtu l'reachu kamocha? The Ramban seems to say it's about the way you feel about other person. Source number 10, Ramban. It's a guzma. It's a guzma. A person cannot love others the way he loves himself. So the Ramban writes, V'yahavtu Reachu Kamocha might be an exaggeration, hafloga. But then the Ramban says, maybe what the Ramban ultimately means is the same as the Rambam. Source number 11 and 12. This Rambam appears twice in the Rambam. Mitzvah sasei shel davreim. Levake choilem lenachem avelem lohitzi esemes lahachnes esakala lelavis orchem lesasir bekol sorchei apkvura lesameach chosem vekala velesadom ve'elehem gimeles chasodim shebegufo she'ein lehem shiur. And we quote the Mishnah in Peah every day in the morning. V'yafol pi shekol misasele midevreim hareim bechlal v'yahavtu l'reachu kamocha kol hadvorim she'ata roitze she'asu oisem lecha acherim aseh ata oisan lo'achicha v'torah v'mitzvos. The Rambam clearly says Yahavtu Reachu Kamocha is not only about how you feel. It's not about your feelings, your emotions, your attitude. It is what you do and not only what you feel. The way you interact with other people. The way you would like other people to treat you. That is the way you should treat others. And therefore, all the mitzvahs that are defined as gemilas chasodim begufoi are included in v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Let me make a side comment. The Rambam writes, mitzvahs aseichel divreim. And he makes this point again. Afal pi shekol mitzvahs elu midivreim. And then he writes, they are included in v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is a mitzvah d'oraisa. So is it d'oraisa or d'rabbanan? This is how we define a concept. And maybe at another opportunity, we will expand on this concept. Mitzvah d'rabbanan sheyesh lo ikar min ha'torah. Fundamentally, every gemilas chasodim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. But the details are in d'oraisa. The mitzvah d'oraisa is act, react, interact, treat others with compassion, with feeling, as you would like them to treat you. However, you don't necessarily need to dance at weddings. You don't necessarily need to do bigger cholim. There are 1,000 other ways in which you could make people happy. If it's a chamsin outside, terribly hot weather, and you open a table on the corner of the street you live, and you offer passerbys cold lemonade, that is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You're going to make so many people happy. Offer ice cream to all the kids in the shchuna. You're going to be the hero of the shchuna. That is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So Minat Torah person doesn't necessarily need to perform these mitzvahs, which is hachnosas kala, lelaves orchim, levaker choilem, lenacham avelim. You have 1,000 other ways to make people happy. So these are mitzvahs d'rabbanan. And Chachamim say, you need to engage in these mitzvahs. Levoyes sames, biker choilem, nechum avelim, lesameach chosa v'kala. These are mitzvahs d'rabbanan. But when you engage in these mitzvahs, you're mekayim a mitzvah d'oraisa. If you do not engage, you're mevatla mitzvah d'rabbanan, because you still have many other ways in which you could be mekayim the mitzvah d'oraisa. Anyway, coming back to the fundamentals, the Rambam clearly says, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is not about the way you feel. It is about your actions and your deeds. Treat other people with decency, with compassion. Make people happy, just like you would like other people to treat you. The Rambam says the same, source number 12 in Hilchos Deis, in a more abbreviated fashion. Mitzvah kol adam le'ohev es kol echad v'yechad v'yisur kegufo shenema v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha lefichach tzarich lesaper b'shivcho. ולחוס על ממונו, כאשר הוא חס על ממון עצמו ורוצה בכבוד עצמו. והמסחבת בכל החברים אין לחלק לעולם הבא. So the principle is the same. It is about what you do. v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is treat others like you would like them to treat you. Speak nicely about them. Care for their possessions. Care for their pride, for their honor, for their dignity. If it's the same principle as in Hilchos Aval, could anybody suggest, so why does the Rambam say something differently? Why is the formula of Hilchos Deis different than the formula in Hilchos Aval? Could anybody suggest? I will explain. The answer is a very simple one. Hilchos Deis is about midos tayvos. The Rambam calls midos deos. Deos is not an intellectual endeavor. In the lashon of the Rambam, it is midos. So all the details that we find in Hilchos Aval, our halachas, our actions, our deeds, biker choilem, nichum avelim, hachnosas orchim, dance at wedding, l'sameach chosa v'kala, these are halachas. And the halachas are in Hilchos Aval. In Hilchos Deis, it's about midos, but the principle is the same. Talk nicely about people. That is an attitude. Lachos alma moinoi is an attitude. Koidoi, care for another's dignity. These are not specific halachas, and that's why they're in Hilchos Deis and not in Hilchos Sovel. Hilchos Sovel is halachas, Hilchos Deis is midas, but the principle is the same. It is not only abstract love, the way you feel about people, it is about the way you treat people. Let's go back to the Ramban, source number 10. So the Ramban actually asks a question. Is it possible for a person to love another as he loves himself? It might be an exaggeration. But then the Ramban says, Bikol inyan. Bikol inyan means in every way. Kasher yohav et nafsho bekol hatov. So maybe the Ramban actually means the same as the Rambam. Kamocha doesn't mean the level of ahava. Kamocha would mean the nature of ahava and not the level of ahava. The level of yohavto l'reacho cannot be the same level as the way you love yourself, but the nature could be the same nature. And maybe that's what the Rambam means, b'kol inyan. The way you would like people to treat you, that is how you should treat an other. And now we go back to source number 5, a story told in Shabbos Daf Lamed Aleph. And this is a very famous story. And Chazal want to stress the different personalities between Hillel and Shammai. Lefi pshuton shel devarim. Hillel was the paragon of compassion, patience. Shammai was the angry one. And Chas v'Shalom, the way we relate to Gedolah Tanoim is Hakol lefi shoresh nishmosam. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, in the entirety of Shas, seems to be a captain, the angry one. And Abitzele Peterburger, the great giant of Musa, says, Chas v'Shalom, we should not find deficiencies in the midas of the greatest Tanoim. That was Rabbi Eliezer's derech and hanhogas hatzibur, zroy k'mora b'talmidim. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, beruach hakodesh nu, the fishoresh nishmosoi. This is his derech in hanhoga. And the same applies to Hillel and Shammai. Anyway, what's the story? Could you teach me Kol HaTorah while I'm standing on one foot? Shammai was a builder. He wasn't in construction. In our language, in our slang, he threw them down the stairs. Get lost, Shammai told them. Leave me alone. Borafnei Hillel, Gairei. Hillel took him into his home. He gave him Geiris Omelei. Da'alach sani lachav lechlo tavid. Zui kol HaTorah kulo. Ve'idach pirusha. Zil gemor. All the rest is commentary. Let's go learn. So what did Hillel tell the girl? Ma da'alach sani lachav lechlo tavid. Does it sound familiar? That is exactly what Targum Yonasson's translation of our Pusik is, the very first source on the top of the page. We scroll up to Targum Yonasson on the top of our page. Will you scroll up, please? Do you hear me?
Can you go back to the beginning? Yes, it takes a second sometimes for the computer to comply.
So what Hillel teaches us is exactly Targum Yonason. What you hate, lo tavid lei. Does anybody remember who was Yonason? Yonason ben Oziel? In Sukkot of Chof Ches, Chazal say, the smallest Talmud of Hillel HaZokan was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The greatest Talmud of Hillel HaZokan was Yonason ben Oziel, and that's Targum Yonason. So if you wonder, where did he pick up this translation, this interpretation? The min atzani lach lo tavid lei. Well, he heard that from his great Rebbe, from Hillel HaZukan, and that's the story in Shabbos Lamed Aleph. We scroll right back down to the Gemara in Shabbos, Rabbi say. We go right back down. So the Gemara in Shabbos, Hillel says, Ma dalach san elechavrech lo ta'avid. But the Rambam, explaining v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha, says exactly the same idea in a positive context. Hillel and Yonis ben Asil teach us the same principle in a negative connotation. Hillel says, what you don't like people to do to you, don't do to others. Yonis ben Asil says the same. The Rambam picks up the same idea, but in a positive connotation. Kol ma, whatever you want others to do for you, you do for others. The last line in the Rambam, 11. Kol advorim she'ato roitze sheyasu oisam locho acherim, asei ato oisam lo'ochicho v'toiro v'mitzvahs. So why does the Rambam change the formula? The Lashon of Hillel and Yonis. Let us note, Hillel doesn't mention the pasuk v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha, but the Marsha on this spot says what Hillel is teaching the Ger is v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha, and it's interesting. The Marsha doesn't quote the Rambam. He never does. The Marsha is pshat, and it is obvious when you learn Marsha. He never quotes Poskim. The Marsha learned Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos, and Pshat. So the Ramah doesn't quote neither Yonis ben Uziel nor the Rambam. But on his own, let's learn the Marsha. V'omar, dehele lindoi delach sana lechavrech oisavet v'hainu t'chsiv b'toyre v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha. So the Marsha on his own says, what Hillel is teaching the Ger is v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha. And then the Marsha asks our question without quoting the Rambam. V'yesh la'ayin b'zeh gam she'omer lei b'loshen targum sheken hoyo l'shoina mas b'Yerushalayim. So it's no wonder that he spoke Aramaic, because that was the language everybody spoke in those days. Makol makom amay shen Elohim eloi b'loshen shlila. Danach san elechavrech targum. The targum melishna dekro havel elemeim v'tarach melech chavrech kavoseh k'targum unkelos. The Marsha wasn't aware of the targum Yonason. He only quotes the unkelos, but he asks the fundamental question: why doesn't Hillel teach in the positive connotation? Why negative? Why does he say, don't do others what you wouldn't like them to do to you? And why doesn't he go beyond that? Treat others the way you would like others to treat you. And the Marsha has two arguments. I think both of them are somewhat questionable. But lo says the gabe lo takum v'lo titor ksiv va'ala koi v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha shelo tasa lo ra mikol desani lach. So the Marsha says the reisha of the posuk is lo says lo takum v'lo titor. So Hillel's understanding is the sefer is also a negative precept. I think it would make more sense to say like tikam v'lo titor is allowed. V'yahavta l'reachu kamocha is a mitzvah say. And it's two sides of the same coin. Don't do bad, do good. So I don't think this pshat is reasonable. And then the Marsha says another pshat, another svara. Legabei rasas lo toiva lo yikom v'yahavta l'reachu kamocha chayechu kodma l'chayecha v'echo. And now, at the end, he does quote Targum Yonason, v'chein morchichen divrei Targum Yonason. Negative, not positive. Why does the Rambam And the Rambam also explains v'ahavta l'reachu kamocha. And the Rambam presents it in a positive formulation. So let me share with you my idea. Ibididi talya libi oimeli. Hillel was the one of compassion. Rashi, Shabbos Lamed Aleph, asks a very fundamental question. Rashi quotes the Gemara in B'choros Daf Lamed. Ger shemekabel atzmo kol haTorah kula chutz midoverecho dein mekabel naisa. So how is Hillel mekabel a ger when this guy with his chutzpah wants to learn kol haTorah kula while I'm standing on one foot? We can understand why Shammai tells him, get lost. You need to learn all your life to know Torah, not when you're standing on one foot. Rashi explains. Hillel was impressed by this person's personality. Hillel was confident. This is a great guy. And Hillel was 100% confident. He's ignorant. But if I'm going to teach him Torah, he will be the greatest Jew we ever knew. So Hillel was confident that this is going to be a great Yid, a great Jew. He's ignorant. He doesn't know much. And that's why he wants to learn al-rega lachas. But Hillel identified his personality. And that is why he wanted him in our camp. So my feeling would be, Hillel doesn't want to raise the bar very high. Because Rashi explains, he wanted to attract this person. He wanted him amongst us. So when you want to track a person and bring him into your camp, you set the bar low. Especially for the time being, he's still a guy. He doesn't have a Yiddish neshama, doesn't have a Yiddish heart. So maybe to expect from a Gentile positive way to treat people, maybe that's too much. So Hillel projects the minimum requirement. What you don't want other people to do to you, you don't do to others. And Hillel is confident. Once I bring him into our camp, included in the Idach Perusha, Zil Gemar, Hillel says, a day after tomorrow, I will tell him, it's not enough not to hurt people. It's not enough not to do bad. Kadosh Baruch Hu expects much more than that. And Hillel is going to learn the Rambam with him. Ma sha'ato roitze sheyasu lahu acherim, aseh ato la'acherim. So, for the time being, this guy is not a Jew. For the time being, this guy is a bit arrogant. But Hillel wants him. So Hillel presents the minimum requirement. Mada al-Achsani l'chavrach do tavid. But it is clear to the Rambam that this is not only about don't be bad, don't be nasty. It is about being good. The way you would like other people to treat you, that is the way you should treat others. And therefore, it's not necessarily a stira between Hillel and Targum Yonison. It's not a stira between the Rambam and Hillel HaZoken, Targum Yonison, with the interpretation of the Maharsha. Source number 13 is the famous quote of Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rabbi Akiva v'yohavto l'reacho kamocha ze klal godoy b'Torah. So whenever I speak about the tragedy of Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 Talmidim perished. Shaloi nagu kavod sebezeh, and everybody asks this fundamental question. Is it Misa b'dei Shamayim? Is it Kores? It's a mitzvah saseh. And a mitzvah saseh, the Gemara says many sources in Shas, אינו זז משם עד שנמחה לו. And Mrs. to say, these are the smallest of Eilis, not the big ones. It's not a Rav, it's not Koros, it's not Mrs. Basin, it's not Misa B'dei Shemayim. Why did they die? So many times I heard a story from my great Rebbe, the Kloisenberger Rebbe Zecher Tzaddik B'Kodesh L'Broch. And the Rebbe used to say one of his earliest recollections. I was sitting on my father's lap. The father of the Kloisenberger Rebbe was the Rudniker Rav. He was an Einikel of the Divrei Chaim. Last week, Thursday night in my Shiur, I said, a Shiur Mishnosoi Shel Divrei Chaim. Because this year is 150th Yortzeit of the Divrei Chaim. He passed away Tov Reish Lamed Vav, Tavshin Pei Vav, 150 years. So I dedicated the Shiur, but the personality, the greatness of the Divrei Chaim, I recommend listening to that Shiur at any time, and all the other outlets, and Baruch Hashem, many platforms carry my shirim, Kol HaRoshaim, and many others. So anyway, so the son of the Divrei Chaim was the Goretzer Rav, his son was the Rudniker Rav, and he was the father of the Kloisenberger Rebbe. And the Kloisenberger says, I was sitting on my father's lap, and my father was crying. And I asked him, Abba, Father, why are you crying? And he told me, Zalman Leib, that's the way they called him as a little child. His name was Moron Rabbeinu Yekasil Yehuda, and in Yiddish slang it's Zalman Leib. My father told me, Zalman Leib, ich bin dich mekana, I envy you. And I was taken aback, and I asked, Father, you're a great Rebbe. I'm a little boy. Why do you envy me? You have a lot of Hasidim. And my father said, ich bin dich mekana, weil dir es nicht gesehen dem Zanzer Seide. I envy you because you didn't know, you never saw the Divrei Chaim. And I was even more surprised, and I asked my father, I should envy you. You had the schos of being Mishamish, the great Zanzer Rav. I never saw him. And my father said, you didn't know the Divrei Chaim. So what will they demand from you la'achar me'er ve'esrim? But then ask me, you had the schus of knowing the Divrei Chaim, and this is who you are? You didn't learn anything from the Divrei Chaim? And my father was crying. So having the privilege to be Mishamish, Adam Gadol, it's not only a privilege, it's not only a schus, it's a responsibility. If you're not who you should be, it could be a liability. So my feeling is, those 24,000 Talmidim, Loi Nago Koved Zeh B'Zeh, Melech Shemayim, they asked them, are you Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva? Did you learn anything from Rebbe Kiva? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, you have to you didn't hear that? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said in Perek Gimel Masechet Avos, Chavav Adam Shenivru B'Tzelem, Chibi Yisrael Nadat Lo Shenivru B'Tzelem Elokim, Chavivin Yisrael, Shem Bonim L'Mokayim. You didn't hear that? You weren't there? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, Eis Hashem Elokecho Tiro L'Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim? You didn't hear that either? So are you Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva? What exactly did you learn from him? So maybe that's the point why those 24,000 Talmidim perished. It is because they were Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva, and therefore you should have been better. So anyway, Rebbe Kiva says we have to have Kamocha. Now I want to share with you a Gavaldig Yichidus. And I think when Rebbe Kiva says we have to L'Rechu Kamocha Zaklal Godel B'Torah, it is not only a Klal Godel in Musar, it's a Klal Godel in Lamdus. And this brings us back to page number 2. Source number 9. For some reason, I don't see the Gemara. I only see the Namuki Yosef. But let me share with you. Source number 3. Source number 3 is the Gemara. Source number 3, we scroll up to the third source on our sheet. Iboyelu ben ma'ishiyakas dam la'ovet. Ramasna Omar, v'yahavtu l'reyachu kamocha. What was the question? In days of yore, people believed that bloodletting is essential to your health. And they used to come once a month to a uman. Hakozas dam is bloodletting. And there were different methods. Some used leeches, and the leech is a parasite. So some people raised leeches in their aquariums, in vessels, and they put those leeches on a person's back, and the leeches suck blood. Well, to us, that would seem extremely impulsive. Who wants live parasites on his back sucking the blood? So then there were other professionals that just did what we do today when we take any blood tests, any blood work. Hakos is done. So the Gemara asks, is a son permitted to bloodlet from his father? It's a medical procedure. It's his father's benefit. But on the other hand, you're shedding your father's blood. Would that be maka of the imoy mois yomas? So the question in the Gemara is about maka of the imoy. Reb Masna says, "V'yatiracha kamocha." Rashi explains, "Lo yizar yisor asur l'chaveimer dov'shein l'chofetz lasos latzmo." Tanoi bechitin v'hoida lo b'sa'orin. Many times I spoke to you about my father. My father was a big Ilui, but he also liked a vertel. He loved a good vertel. So there's a sugi in the Gemara, Tana bechitin v'hoida lo b'sa'orin. Person claims wheat, and the other admits barley. I'm talking about A, and you're talking about B. My father had his own expression, and he used to say, Tanoi bechiten v'hoidoi al eretz v'shamayim. And that is not even hoidoi b'sa'orin. Tanoi bechiten v'hoidoi al eretz v'shamayim. So the question is...
They still don't hear well here.
You don't hear me?
No, we're fine.
So the question was regarding Maka'ov Ve'imoy. And the answer, the psak is after Achakamoicho. So the way I understand it, is the fundamental underlying principle of the entire realm of Beinodam Lechaveiroi. And when Rabbi Kiva says it's not only in Musar, it is the fundament, the basis, the underlying principle of the entire system of Ben Adam Lechaberei. It's about I and you, I and thou, I and him, you and me. It is about you have to treat others the way you want others to treat you. Don't hurt others as you wouldn't like others to hurt you. And when Rabbi Kiva says Zeklal Godel B'Torah, it is a Klal Godel not only in Musar, but in Lamdas and in Halacha as well. Yes, the question was regarding, regarding Makov Avimoi. And the psak is about you have to Echo Kamocha. And because when you let your father's blood, you're doing him a favor. It is beneficial. It is what you would like others to do to you. It is what you should do for your father, not to your father, but for your father. And that is Klal B'Torah. And we also shared with you the idea of Talmidei Rabbi Kiva, Shemeiso Ben Pesach Latzeres. More was expected from them because they had the privilege of being Mishamish, the great Tana Rabbi Kiva. So this is it for today. And I regret I won't be around the next 2 weeks, and we'll be in touch, and we'll see how we move forward. And thank you. It's always a privilege and always a schus. Kol tov, Reb Shlomo will be in touch.